it was the afternoon, like the sun was slowly setting, and the driver was playing jazz, like kind of American jazz. And we were just driving through all these little streets, up sort of around Crenshaw and, Mid Wilshire, but it was really just the land of the small stucco boxes painted light pastel colors and trees, and just it was so beautiful. I was like, oh, this is a great, I mean, it doesn't look like a city, but it is a city in terms of its quantity, and it was really lovely.
This is Five Places, Los Angeles, a living documentary of the city produced by the LA Forum for Architecture and Urban Design. I'm Emmanuelle Bourrier, and in each episode, I ask one interviewee about the five places that define Los Angeles for them. Today, my guest is the wonderful Barbara Bestor. This episode was recorded in February of 2024, and if you follow the podcast, you may have noticed a very long hiatus. Thank you for coming back. It has felt a little surreal to edit this episode when so much has changed since it was recorded, including fire in the form of wildfires, ice in the form of raids, and the way our communities have rallied together in response. We also saw the passing of Frank Gehry and the construction of the new LACMA. Though our conversation predates all this, Barbara's viewpoint on LA is timeless. Barbara Bestor, FAIA, is the principal and founder of Bestor Architecture, recognized for the inventive integration of architecture, urbanism, infrastructure, and landscape at multiple scales. Bestor Architecture has designed a number of award-winning projects: homes, restaurants, technology and fashion headquarters, and community arts buildings, such as the Silverlake Conservatory of Music and Ashes and Diamonds Winery. Recent projects include the upcoming Summaeverythang Community Center, founded by artist Lauren Halsey, re-envisioning the ICA-LA, and a range of residences, including a sustainable, resilient, optimistic house designed for the Case Study Adapt program that responds to the wildfires in Altadena and Pacific Palisades. Barbara received her undergraduate degree at Harvard University, studied at the Architectural Association in London, England, and received a Master's of Architecture at SCI. She is the author of Bohemian Modern, Living in Silverlake. The show notes are extensive and in many cases include updates on the people and places discussed, so please check them out. Let's dive into the five places that define Los Angeles for Barbara.
Well, yeah, it's hard to narrow it down, to be honest. So whatever.
Yes, right?
I could probably choose a different five tomorrow, is the thing. So
Yes.
because it depends on your point of view in a given moment.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So I guess maybe the question is more like, about today, how you feel about it today.
Who is Denise Colomb that's behind you? I see
Oh,
on the left, but what's the other one?
yeah. So
An actor?
no, well, Denise Colomb is or was a photographer. She was this incredible photographer, worked into her 90s, like well into her 90s. And this is a photograph she took of Nicolas de Stael. I never know if I'm saying his last name right, but he was a French, but originally, I think, Russian abstract painter who lived in Paris for many years. So I've always loved that photograph. So,
yeah, it's so great.
Yeah, these two posters I got from the Centre Pompidou when I was living in Paris. I went there whenever I could, and I've had these posters since then. So they're like 30 years. Yeah. Yeah.
My high school yearbook quote was "Breathless" by JLG. I was
really? Oh, I love
it. Fan in my younger years. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I'm a big fan as well. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. And I'm going to start with what's always the first question, which is how long have you lived in LA and what brought you to LA?
I was shocked to do the math, and I think I've been here 35 years.
Okay.
And, which is a long time. You kind of forget how old you are sometimes. But I came out here really to be an architect, to go to grad school. And I am from the East Coast. I'm from Cambridge, Mass, and I went to college there. And I knew I was going to be an architect since I was 12, but I had thought I would, do that in the, where I was, on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And then I was in, when I was in school, I took a year off and went to the AA in England. And there was this guy, Alvin Boyarsky, who was the head of that. And he said, you should stay here and go to architecture school here. I was like, I cannot afford to go to private school. My college scholarship like literally paid for me to go there. But he's like, well, if you're not going to do that, then don't go to school on the East Coast. You need to go to California because that's where all the cool architecture is, and you should go to SciArc. And I was like, what's that? And so I ended up weirdly got a summer job at Morpheus like that summer, and when I was in college, I got the internship, I think $300 a week or something. But that was very exciting, and I was like, I loved it. I loved everything about California. I didn't know how to drive. I don't even know how I got to the office actually, but I guess I had a boyfriend who was going to film school in LA, so I would get a ride. But yeah, I really and then I moved out here maybe 2 years later after I finished college, and then took a year off and went to grad school. But I mean, at SciArc, I went to SciArc in
Right.
88, I think.
What a great introduction to LA. Like,
It was so great, yes. And it was also interesting. I mean, late 80s was an interesting time here because it was still considered, culturally bankrupt by the East Coast, but you had all this more funky stuff going on, like sort of the era of LA Iworks and City Cafe and Josh Schweitzer, and Morphosis was like a little young company then, and Gary was more established, but it was before the really big projects for Gary. So it was really exciting. And I loved like downtown was so gritty. Like I liked, sort of the Repo Man movie was not, a lie about how it kind of felt, as a place. It was really different. Sun-baked warehouses. I took a year off trying to be a painter, but I'm not psychologically suited to be an artist that works by themselves at all. And I was like, maybe I should go to grad school in that. But I was like, no, I think I really want to do architecture. And then kept at it, and I was happily went that way. But yeah, it did seem like I love the idea of it being a secret. It was a secret, but was also full of interesting subcultures. That was so great.
yeah. And I gather painting is kind of a recurring theme for you. You've studied art initially, I think, and
Yeah, I studied visual
yeah.
environmental studies, yeah, art. I mean, I did paintings for my thesis. But I did have this idea that I'd be an architect like from a pretty young age. But I think it's that, color. I really liked, I don't know, anything from like David Sally and to Paul Klee and Joseph Albers, that kind of stuff. But I think my paintings were kind of representation. Well, they weren't like abex or anything. But I do think what's nice about the art of architecture, which again, LA is so good as a place to be a kind of creative architect in the sense of, different aesthetic formal ideas are have been welcome here, is that it's so collaborative and there's so many factors involved, whether it's materiality or a bunch of people that you're working with or a client or clients that you're working with, and weird conditions around earthquakes. I mean, there's just constantly changing as a framework. So you're always learning new things. And I think it's very, very different than the practice, say, of, being the sole generator and producer of your work. And I think
Right.
I think for that reason, it's even though there's a lot of architects who are kind of, supposedly introverted, it still doesn't really function unless you're working in this larger community and with these ever-changing, really, like you're in like
Yeah.
not a video game, but like a kind of a massive game that's really fun. And at the end you get to make cool stuff, but you have to be a player in the game.
Yes.
You can't just go by yourself in a corner and do it. Like there's no way really to do that, I don't think.
Which is so exciting because it brings all these other unknowns and influences in. Shall we get into your 5 places? I'm very eager to
Oh,
hear
sure. Oh, sure.
that.
Yeah. Well, I have a fun one that I want to start with, which is, well, it starts with like the harbor of the Port of LA, in LA Harbor. And I used to teach a class that was inspired by one that Mary Ann Ray used to teach, but it was seeing LA kind of class that was mandatory for all the grad students in this program I was directing at one point. And one of the things we would go to, the kind of fisherman's village and get this tour boat, which sometimes you could actually take a kind of something that looked like a big old sloop, like sailboaty thing, but still had an engine, or also be kind of a regular motorboat. But you get a tour of the harbor, and that tour is incredible. You see all the shipping containers, and they still have these tours, and you go out to the breakwater, you see a bunch of seals, but as you go around this big chunk of land that sticks out, first you pass these bucolic kind of Spanishy houses, which it turns out is a Coast Guard compound. Like the head of the Coast Guard lives in this house, and there's some other houses, and it's a sort of, it looks like what you think kind of those sort of bases look like in Hawaii, kind of old-fashioned green lawn. And then you go around the corner of this island, and there's a prison. I think it's a federal prison, and there's guys yelling at you like in the yard, where they're having their free time outside or something, and it's very violent and weird. And I was always fascinated by, this is Terminal Island. I was always fascinated by that island in general, and other parts of it I know are rented out for movies. Like if you have like the warehouse shootout, there's stuff there.
Right.
But lately, but like one of the fun things about the port, is also how constructed it is. Like all the land in the port of LA is, not all of it, but they're constantly adding to the footprint of the land of the port, like to have more space for shipping containers and whatnot. But I just got this book recently, which is why this is on my list, about Terminal Island, the history of Terminal Island, which is where that Coast Guard or that prison is. But it's actually this much more complex palimpsest history, where I think way back it was actually called, there was like a thing called like Dead Man's Hill, and there was bones of people from like the later 19th century there, and it was kind of like a scary outpost that you could walk out to and see these caves. And then over time it became like a resort area, had a big hotel, and it was kind of like one of these early LA boosterish tourism places. And then the railroads got involved, and the port started to get set up, and it was the reason it's called Terminal Island, I guess. This is the terminus of the rail line, the intercontinental rail line. So it started to get industrialized. So then slowly all the fancy stuff, resort stuff left. But then what it really was for a long time was the home of and the workplace of a lot of Japanese fishing people. Like there was canneries, and there was all these different little houses kind of built along it. And that was really what Terminal Island was for quite a long time, until World War II. And then most of those people lost their homes and were imprisoned. And then after they were removed by that decree, then it ended up getting kind of more industrialized. And so, but also if you looked at like the shape of it over time, it's like watching those, I have a GIF I was just looking at yesterday, like of the Middle East, like who owns what, and like what's Iraq and what's British, and what it keeps changing, from the 19th century to 1950s. It's like that, where there's just this constantly shifting kind of social, economic thing that in a way it like does tell that story of LA itself and its kind of industrialization, and also the different people who have lived here. I don't know what the prehistory is in terms of native populations, but anyway, so it's just interesting. And it's also just so beautiful because the harbor itself is actually really like a wonderful, like for architects, it's just you're like, oh my God, these shipping containers, they look like the biggest skyscraper you've ever seen. And then just all these different, the cranes, what's not to like. So it's kind of like our Rotterdam, I guess, so Terminal Island, that's one of mine. But there was, up until recently, actually, this pretty amazing bustling, like where you got that boat, Fisherman's Village, had turned into like a big multi-ethnic food hall outdoors of like crazy seafood, which I think just got shut down, and they're remodeling into something more fancy along there. So I don't know what that'll end up like, but I think it's still where you can get the boat for the tours. Otherwise, you have to go to where the Long Beach Aquarium is. But the tour is just a great thing to do. And it's like
it
very
sounds
whale
amazing.
watching. It's going like building an infrastructure watching, instead of looking for whales. It's fun.
That beauty of that infrastructure is it's so compelling.
But it's fascinating that it has this history here in LA of like changing ownership and purpose.
Yeah, and just the idea that we make new land all the time, which we still do. Like I don't think that people understand that we are constantly building infrastructure in this, or building
Yeah.
really new territory. It's really, yeah. Hmm. But so my second one is nearby that because I kind of like San Pedro and stuff, but which is actually it's probably the only building on my list, but it's the Wayfarer Chapel, which is, the son of Franklin Wright, Lloyd Wright's building, which is pretty much a marvel. I mean, I feel like what's kind of great about it, it's so popular in popular culture that it's in, a bunch of TV shows, people always getting married there and soap operas and stuff. It's very romantic. It's a teeny tiny chapel with a glass roof and a lot of glass walls with, I think it's a kind of a pine tree that's planted around it, but it's one of the few buildings I've been in that really is so integrated with nature that it like requires the trees that are the canopy over it to exist. Like that's what makes the building be itself. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's not the building really dematerializes and becomes like a arbor of trees. It's like where you would like it could be a stage set from Midsummer Night's Dream or something, the way that it works.
Right.
And I've been to that chapel that's also pretty cool in Arkansas, the Faye Jones one, the Thorn Crown, I think it is. And that's really beautiful too. But there the building is doing like all the work, like it's in the
Mhm.
forest, but like the forest is also inside the building. In this case, it's so simple. But when you look at it more closely, like the detailing, like it's just little L metals that are kind of painted gold or something to look fancy, but it's just built out of stuff you could buy at like industrial metal supply warehouse, and then with a lot of glass. And I think it's amazing. And I feel like I like it also as part of what I love about West Coast architecture is that we're so influenced in weird ways by like Frank Lloyd Wright's legacy and Taliesin and the idea of organic architecture, and that, whether it's Frank Gehry's thesis about the Callis House, at USC, the Schiller House, or all the people that went to Taliesin and became like a lot of our kind of more creative, weirdo, fun architects from the 20th century. But yeah, but then I mean, I don't know much about Lloyd Wright as a person or anything, but just that legacy of how can buildings get even closer to nature? How can humans use geometry from nature and just kind of do it? Like it just takes it to such an extreme. I just think it's amazing. I'd love to see a model of the building. I don't even know how it works as a building. Like I've never studied it per se. But I would actually, that's probably something I should do. Oh, the other thing about it that's interesting is that it just closed like for good because it's on
Oh,
that site of near San Pedro. The entire southern edge of Palos Verdes, or a big chunk of it, is so unstable. It's where all those houses have been like falling into holes,
oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh,
and Wayfarer Chapel is right there, like in that. Like if you take this amazing drive that goes around the bottom of San Pedro, it's like, it's kind of a nice drive, and people go bicycle riding or real bike riding. But at one point it goes like it's super funky and it's like up and down. There's chain link around it, all that saying like don't walk here, ground unstable, ground unstable. Is part of that, like I think slowly that part of California is falling into the ocean, basically. So
right.
it's very dramatic. It's very,
Yeah.
literally like organic architecture on unstable ground. Like that is such a good metaphor, for LA architecture. I think so. So I think that's just amazing. And that means you can't even go see it anymore. And maybe you can probably walk around the outside. Um,
Yeah. Is anyone trying to like save it or like I don't know if you can
I mean,
move it
it was just a
or
story in the LA Times like 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's kind of how it made onto my list. I was like, oh my gosh, that they
yeah.
had to close it because it was not safe. I don't know if it's the parking lot was not safe or the whole building is not safe, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be some attempt to preserve it, but I don't know how you preserve, you'd have to move it probably if the ground is too unstable.
Right.
Another,
But
oh
then
my,
it's so integrated, right? Like as you just said,
yeah,
the
what do you do
trees.
without the trees? It's not even a thing.
Yeah. It's wow. What
It'll be
a
like that Luna Park thing, just like, why is this here?
yeah,
The building.
artifacts. Both of your choices so far are to me like part of a climate change story,
Yeah. Well, just, yeah, climate and, well, I mean, large, like geological forces, in
Yes,
terms of Palos Verdes, that's
right.
not climate per se, but,
Well, I
the,
mentioned the port in that context because I've been interested. I mean, I went to, I'd never been to Grand Canyon. I went last November. Um, Mind blowing, like even more so than I could have imagined. But one of the things that really struck me on the road trip there and back was I live in a bubble here, like with all these EVs. You're driving on these interstate freeways and everyone's driving huge pickup trucks and they're all these huge 18 wheelers, like so many trucks, so many of them. But I gather that there are now efforts like related to the Port of LA to start to electrify truck transportation.
oh yes, I think that's been a big issue in the union. That's, I mean, like Lane, I think is a group that is a progressive organizing group for that, but
And there's some
yeah.
people at Lacey at the Clean Tech Incubator working on it as well.
Oh,
They're pretty involved with that. So like I was heartened to see that because that I just feel like that would make such a difference if all of that incredible um, transport of goods could be electrified.
what makes you wish there was more trains still?
Yeah.
Which actually is a good segue to my third one. Okay.
Oh,
Because
good.
it's my third one would be the Mattachine Steps, which is the public staircase in Silverlake. It's on Cove Avenue, kind of off of the LA Reservoir. And they were renamed, it used to be called like the Cove Avenue Steps, but now it was renamed Mattachine Steps in honor of this guy, Harry Hay, who was the one of the original kind of conveners of the first LGBTQ group in America. I think in the 50s. He started organizing the Mattachine Society, maybe even earlier than that. And he actually, interestingly, like grew up in a Gregory Ain house in Hollywood Hills, but he lived right off of this staircase. And he like part of the history of Silver Lake. I'm not from, but I've been living in Silver Lake for a really long time now. So I really
Yes.
love the, again, palimpsest, but like the different kinds of bohemian cultures that over time live there, which is kind of why we have a really great legacy of interesting architecture, because often interesting clients beget interesting architecture and a lot of stuff that's not that expensive, but still really incredible architectural projects.
Yeah.
Maybe because they're not expensive, they're incredible architecture, but it's possible. But yeah, but so Harry, so the Mattachine Steps are part of this infrastructure that's all over Silver Lake. That's kind of like a popular thing now. You can go walk the steps here or Los Feliz, but they were all built. All these public staircases are from the 20s when the Silver Lake Hills were getting populated, and everything was trolley line. So like up Silver Lake Boulevard was a trolley line. Glendale Boulevard was a red car line. There's like cool bridges. There's pictures of it like go across the hills and connect you to Griffith Park on these trolley lines. And so the staircases were a way of people getting from their house to the trolley so they could go to downtown to work or whatever. So there's this trace of a previous LA that was, demolished in favor of the automobile and roads, but it
Yeah.
still
What a
exists as
shame.
a kind of thing. So I like that one because it's a double monument, of the staircases themselves are so, and they are really fun to go on. I live on a street that has three staircases right below it. So if I'm feeling wildly energetic, well, going up them is the hard part, going down them is a piece of cake. I can still really boulevard pretty quickly from my house if I just go down the staircase. Coming up takes a little longer. But just that again, that like why are these stairs here? Why are there all these houses? It's actually a bunch of J.R. Davidson houses right on the Cove steps, which are pretty great. Another lesser known architect that did a lot of fun residential work. Anyhow, so yeah, I thought that was kind of good. And I guess it was sort of like that guy though, Harry Hay, got sort of booted from the Mattachine side because he was such a hardcore communist even in the 50s. I guess they must have started it in the 30s then. So um which is part of that history of Silver Lake too, where there was kind of like, I think Echo Park was called Red Hill back in the day because it was sort of such a communist hang out. And this is, this is pre-50s communism, pre-Stalin communism. This is America's too right-wing, kind of a lot of popular comment, but it's yeah, so that sort of political social history and intertwined with infrastructure once again. It's kind of interesting.
That's fascinating.
I was so happy when I was reading that. I mean, I knew they'd renamed it, but I didn't know the history of Harry, and I was kind of looking it up. I was like, oh wow.
I want to learn more about that era.
Mm. There's a great, well, someone did a dissertation based book, which I particularly like because it's a reverse of the book that I wrote about Silverlake. I wrote one called Bohemian Modern. This one's called Modern Bohemians, but I'm sure the guy had no reference to mine. And they're not, it's just because it was like really about I think it's mostly about the gay and maybe politically left
Yeah.
society of Silverlake. Like that's really, it's about LA and I think it's like 20s, maybe teens or 20s until the 60s. And because there was like we had our own gay rights riots in Silverlake. The Black Cat restaurant here on Sunset has really great photographs from the protests, and it still is one of the LGBTQ meccas kind of for California. Yeah, keep going.
Sure. Although I'm just dreaming about, like, I wish I could walk a staircase and ride a cable car to work.
I know, wouldn't that be? And the old red cars could get restored. I mean, then now it's weird because I mean, Exposition Line, I guess, is the old,
Yeah.
subway lines that had been dedicated. Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? I
Yes.
I mean, Mike Davis had a whole thing about it. I don't remember, like,
Yeah.
I'd be curious what, like, on a blow by blow level, how did they actually dismantle public transportation at that time? I mean, was it really that, backdoor deals, or was it cost thing, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's like we need a power broker book for LA so we can understand what happened, right?
Robert Moses in typical LA form was actually like 60 people spread across the city, in
Right. Yeah.
little power centers.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no doubt.
Another one I thought it just felt like it had to be on this list was Be Musso and Frank's, the restaurant in Hollywood, which I think is so beautiful, like especially the wooden part. But I think of it a little bit as the American bar, in Vienna by Adolf Loos, kind of like the American bar of Los Angeles, certainly Hollywood, because it does have it's in a way its architecture, its interior architecture really is transporting, to the period when it was built, which I'm assuming is the 20s, maybe even later, but maybe earlier, but or 30s. But it's been the center of like so many different communities. It comes up all the time in biographies about movie people. When I first moved here, I knew all these comedy writers who would go there every Saturday morning and have a couple booths and have flannel cakes, I had like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Whole martini swingers era, just all these different, I've been to memorials there for, friends in the film business. It has, and then it has, it has this menu that doesn't seem to have changed in 100 years, and it has like 50 kinds of potatoes and 10 kinds of weird spinach,
Right.
like you could have just have a scrambled egg, some spinach, and that's fine, It's almost like it does a better job at preserving an idea of Hollywood than almost anything I can think of, and certainly, more than most museums or whatever, that it's a kind of living, breathing monument, but like kind of, let's say, cabinet of curiosities of a way of life. And that it also is, like embraced by different generations, over and over again. So I just think that's what, and I do think architecturally, like there's something about those wooden booths and the little ways that they kind of have the structure around them that gives you this sense of intimacy in your little boothy areas, but then you can kind of still like see who's there, and that weird little bathrooms that have like the kind of vintagey, there's a little place you can sit down and powder your nose or whatever people used to do.
Yeah.
I think it's so great. So yeah. And Hollywood is very, so weird around it now. I mean, Hollywood Boulevard is just bananas, and it
Yeah.
used to have a whole art scene in it because of all the buildings being abandoned. We used to rent one for Woodbury University for like $1,000 a month and had a gallery there. But then, then that block is getting redeveloped now. So
I
I'm
remember
not.
that gallery well.
Oh yeah, WooHo, yeah.
Lots of great shows there.
And next door to Lace, which was a big deal, which had been downtown when that was the cheap place to be, and then it was in Hollywood, and
Yeah.
hopefully come back when that thing gets rebuilt. But yeah, so it is another one of those, like everything is going to keep moving around it and turning into whatever it turns into, but you kind of get the feeling, we sort of Frank's knock on wood will stay. I keep knocking on wood, but hopefully.
Yeah, like it'll just stand still in time. I just looked it up and it is 1919.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really like the birth of Hollywood and the birth, I mean, so it's really
Yeah.
the more than, I mean, the movie studios are actually, I should have put one of the, like, movie studio lots are incredible, and that could be a whole nother thing, but like one movie studio lot could have its 5 places in it easily. So they're amazing as records, but most people don't have access to them. So this is like the public access version. I wonder when the American bar is. Do you think that's 1919 too? I wonder. I bet it is. I bet it's something.
Let me just look it up real quick. It might be. American Bar. Oh, 1908. So very close. Yeah.
But yeah, there's something about that, these, I guess it is true that like we all say now the third place and all that rhetoric, but it is true that bars and cafes and restaurants really did function as, the living rooms of the city for so long. And I think they do again now, finally. Like maybe there was a while where they weren't, but I think people are starting to realize, you want these places where you can gather and
and one thing I love about it too is it really kind of embodies that that kind of old Hollywood, like, we're here in sunshine and palm trees, and then you go inside and it's like velvety and dark.
Oh yeah, it's like the noir side instead of the sunny side of LA. Yeah. Yeah, and you can imagine, a Hitchcock character or a Dashiell Hammett character or something like that, kind of at the bar eating a steak at the counter or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I guess well, let's just say on the topic of old Hollywood, there, if you look at like watch silent movies, which I don't actually do as much as I would like to, but I do sometimes. But I saw one recently, or maybe it was just a clip of not Charlie Chaplin, but the one who made the movie with the house falling onto him, that famous Buster Keaton. It was a Buster Keaton movie, I think. And in the background is the Schindler House. And it's in the middle of nowhere. There's like a car chase or something, like a very old kind of car, because this would be like 1923 or something like that. But it's a kind of like car chase, and it looks like it's in, Nebraska in the prairie. There's just this emptiness all around it. And there's like the weird, like the Schindler House just kind of like sitting there in the middle of nowhere by itself, like a little concrete thing. It's the weirdest thing. And it's so radical. You're like, oh my God, like it, because you think, I mean, ever since I've come to LA, it's been in leafy green West Hollywood. It's on the side street. It's near Gemini Gel. You're kind of like, oh, it's like a little neighborhoody thing. And yes, they built condos around it, but it used to be in the context of a bunch of residential or something like that. And it's just so wild to see it before anything, just there, and it is maybe more like a Taliesin kind of project when you look at that. Not that Schindler went to Taliesin, but just, and it's probably predates Taliesin by a chunk of time. But the elementalness of it, like the tilt-up walls and then the landscape in a way makes more sense. It's so simple with like this kind of planar hollows and stepping things and the boxes on top, like the sleeping porches on top, where if you think of like in the middle of nothing, it's like the Villa Savoy, like except not fancy.
Yeah.
Anyhow. But silent movies have so many of those things, like architecturally, or even like anything that I think The Big Sleep is shot around Los Feliz a lot. So it's like Franklin and Vermont, and it's amazing because you see the city that ish, but then it's just so unpopulated. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the Schindler House with nothing around. I've been wanting to watch, I'm kind of embarrassed that I haven't watched it yet, but LA Plays Itself.
Oh yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
chunks of it, and I guess I've never sat and watched the whole thing because it seems daunting. But that guy is a super genius. He lives in a Schindler house too.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I bet he probably has a lot of the silent. I mean, but he has also all the '70s stuff too. That's kind of rad, like
yeah.
the movies
Because
that
the
take place.
weird thing is, a lot of us kind of knew LA before we even moved to LA because we'd
Mm.
seen it. And so you have these moments of kind of recognition.
I agree. I think every time I land at LAX and come out, because I almost always take JetBlue for whatever reason, um, always perfectly positioned across from the theme restaurant. Is that what's called? The theme restaurant of LAX.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's got like a couple of really tall palm trees around it. And you just can't believe it. Like every time I come, I'm like, oh my God, I'm home, because it's so
yeah,
quintessentially what one thinks of as California, and it's still there and it's not obscured by, a parking garage or something. And the building is weird because it doesn't get used very much because it's old
yeah.
purpose, the restaurant or whatever. It was kind of harder to manage and but it is quite a wonderful landmark. Yeah, I always wonder like what can we come up with to program that so that it would actually
That's a
make sense once the railway tram thing is in the coming through the airport, like maybe there'll be a way to connect to it so that it could actually be like a hangout spot or something.
I feel like it should be better used.
Yeah. I mean, it would
Yeah,
be a cool bar or something, or I mean it wasn't I mean
it
in the
was, wasn't it
90s there
originally?
was like some fancy stuff there, but that was before the airport got so crazily congested,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're mad. And then if I think once or twice I've like, well, I haven't done it in a long time, but if you took a cab sometimes from LAX to say Silverlake and the traffic was bad, that I remember once having this wonderful drive, like landing there, and then it was the afternoon, like the sun was slowly setting, and the driver was playing jazz, like kind of American jazz, and we were just driving through all these little streets, up sort of around Crenshaw and Mid Wilshire, but it was really just the land of the small stucco boxes painted light
Yeah.
pastel colors and trees and just that kind of low key environment that most of like South and Central LA still has, and some big chunks of Midtown and Northern. But it was so beautiful. I was like, oh, this is a great. I mean, it doesn't look like a city, but it is a city in terms of its quantity, and it was really lovely.
I don't know about you, I never get fully, like in a good way, I never get fully used to it. Like it's always surprising me. In some ways always feel like I'm kind of new, even as I get to know it better, but in a great way. Like I love that about it.
No, I feel like I feel like that whole John and Gold thing was cool for a while because you like it might get you to try going somewhere you had never been. And a
Yeah.
friend of mine took me and his wife to City Terrace recently to go to some different restaurants and like a market hall, kind of large mercado. And that was really exciting because I hadn't actually been to any of those places and I didn't know the territory. And then the hills there they're kind of like opposite land of Silver Lake Hills. Like they're pretty tall and you get this view of downtown that's really remarkably beautiful. And um, it's very exciting. I feel kind of like a loser for not having not, I wish I still had to teach a class like that so that I would make myself go on different journeys, and just kind of,
Yeah.
sometimes you need a reason to get out of your day-to-day, work requirements and
I couldn't
all
agree
that.
more. What was the name of that class again?
I think it was called Seeing LA. I have the
Being
syllabus
LA. Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah, I mean, because we
Yeah.
would kind of go on all these little trips. There was
That's
one about
fantastic.
oil in Silver Lake. I mean, in LA, that's an interesting one. There's all these hills, that were full of oil. The oil sucked out, and then some of them shrunk, and some of them got pumped up with water, and it's a whole thing. Baldwin Hills, obviously, being some of them, but that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. All the little lumps in the landscape often meant there were oil in them, but not sort of part of the geological formation of like there's seismic maps and there's oil field maps, and they're amazing because they're
Oh, wow.
so like the seismic ones are these brightly colored things that look kind of like the quilts of G's Bend, I gotta say.
Oh, I love those.
They're so great. And then but
Yeah.
the oil field ones are kind of, all blobs and not unrelated to Zumthor's LACMA design at all. Like they're really so
Interesting.
because they're kind of organic underground pools, basically. But yeah, they're really cool. Well, my other one is an outdoor space, really. So maybe which is the gardens at Disney Hall. I think people know about them, but I feel like it's one of the best kept secrets. It's like people say about the cloisters in New York or something like that. You just
Right.
love those crazy large stairs, and then you're in this beautiful landscape. I think it was designed by Melinda Taylor, as far as I know. And there's, fountains, and there's amphitheaters, and there's just all these beautiful trees just up, in the middle of nowhere. But then maybe the best thing for an architecty person is all these like peekaboo views into Disney Hall that are so great. Apparently, I don't know if it was true, but apparently like Gary had thought that they could put speakers on some like outside to some of the areas where you could see into the hall. So you could sort of have a free concert if you couldn't
I love that.
afford, which I still think would be amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but then that really architectural promenade, like in and out of the leaves of the titanium front, like you walk right through the facade, and that's just it's just so incredible because it's also not like architecture that you couldn't have had that kind of architectural promenade before, in any other spaces. I mean, maybe in those slot canyons, in Utah, but that kind of the shapes and the kind of sculptural quality, and I like it better than like Richard Serra things, 'cause it's just
I was just
so,
thinking about Sarah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like Serra E, but like it's kind of
Yeah.
funner because it's part of a bigger thing, I think. But yeah, I just love that so much, and it's the fact that it is plunked in the middle of the city on this
Yeah.
constructed street already, and the whole Grand Avenue is like a artificial construct, but that you can kind of go into nature from that. I feel like it's very futuristic. It's kind of like reverse futuristic of the Bradbury building or something like that, which is like that interior, complexity thing of 19th century, and then this exterior that's totally public and totally open, but totally underpopulated
It's a
is
little
kind of,
hidden. It's
yeah.
not obvious that you can get there. I love it there too. I actually like when my son, well, I shouldn't say when he was little. He's 14 now and he still loves one of his favorite things to do is to go to downtown LA
Oh,
and
cool.
like park at Grand Central Market, have tacos, and then ride the Angel's Flight up
Totally.
on
Walk through
Mocha.
that weirdo California Plaza. Let's talk about that. That's the weirdest thing ever. I think it's like Arthur Erickson, and I think they keep trying to
Oh,
make it better, but it's so odd.
it's very odd. And it always feels like it's like something's about to happen or just happened, but it's also like weirdly, yes, it's strange. Um, yeah, so and then going to Mocha and often to exactly the place you were talking about to walk up through Disney Concert Hall. And there are
Yeah.
parts of it that remind me of being backstage in a theater. Like because
Yeah.
it's kind of like scaffolding, like it feels like back of house, like back, I'm not sure what that's
Yeah.
called. At the back of a theater, there's a name for it.
Yeah, it's that vertical thing, it's not the eaves, but it's like the eaves.
Yeah,
Um,
it feels like that, which is appropriate, I guess, right? You are like behind the performance.
yeah. Well, and
Uh,
I guess the amphitheater up there kind of emphasizes that too. Yeah. I think there is a trip, there's a walk where you do public library, Grand Central Library and the market and Bradbury Building.
yeah.
I'm in a loop, and then Angels Flight, and then you're up above. And I haven't spent that much time. Actually, even I would say the terminus would probably, like, if you kind of kept going down the avenue, you'd end up at like either Grand Park or at the Mineo Cathedral, which is so that was built in the time that I was here. I knew people who worked on that for Mineo's office, and that's such an interesting one, isn't it? I'm kind of curious what happens with that building as a monument in the next like 50 years. Like, is it going to kind of come back, or is it kind of
Mhm.
just a thing that exists, or how does it signify architecturally? It was unusual because it's such a big project by a non-LA, non-American architect, which I can't think of any other ones like that in
Right.
LA. I mean, you have Myers, Getty, but that's not really a foreign architect. That's to the New York
Yeah.
architect.
There's the Coop Himmelblau High School.
That's true. Right across from it. Look, which
Yeah.
when you're in the cathedral, it looks like it's literally punching it. Like it's
Yeah.
got that arm. Looks like a rock'em robot that's trying to like punch out the cathedral. That's a funny European face off over that.
Yeah. Exactly.
A shame that the top part that was supposed to be like the cool meeting room never got. They couldn't finish it. Now it just is there empty as a non-usable space. Pure sculpture.
Pure sculpture. Yeah.
I would call it VE sculpture. You know, like VE victim sculpture, maybe. Yeah.
Actually, I watched your TED talk recently, and I know it's not a recent talk, but it resonated so much. Like it's it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, like it's wonderful. And I love the way you talked about breaking your own rules.
Oh, that's good. Oh, wow.
That's something
I kind of remember it. I don't know.
Do you remember it?
TEDx talk, by the way, not TED talk. That'd be too
Wow.
Well, I've had that lately where like my mom is 90 and is just a chipper person and
Yeah.
pretty happy and active and whatever. And I was like, oh my God, if I live to be 90, I have like
Yeah.
for 35 years. I was like, oh my gosh. So I've been thinking about that. I mean, which is great for, architecture professions because,
Yeah.
start getting cool projects when you're 50, which seems to be true. So I'm like, okay. But it's also a little like daunting. It's daunting and exciting. So I'm excited about it, but I'm trying to embrace it more and really think about, that issue of purpose and
Yes.
goal. And, I don't really believe in the art museum arms race, of
Mhm.
high design is probably not my track at this point. I don't think.
Yeah.
What is it though? I don't know. I mean, I don't have I kind of like what I do, frankly, but so it's probably a lot of that. But yeah, I'm excited. My daughter's finished college, they're both launching, I don't, so
That's wonderful.
My responsibilities are more open to take on other things. I'm not quite sure what it'll be. I love academia, but not in a full-time way, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm kind of excited. I feel like the next 5 years I can just fart around with ideas of other things to take on or whatever. If I tend to say yes to too many things, I get in trouble, I get like very overcommitted really quickly. So just trying to
yeah.
not do that. Just
relate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that whole idea of purpose, I think, is really like it's exciting because the answer is always there for me. It's like, what do I really care about? Like, what do I really value? What do I want to work on? And that's what led me to architecture in the first place, just like you, I think, right? Like wanting to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, make the world a more beautiful and wondrous place, then.
Yeah. So there are lots of ways to do that.
I'm definitely interested in the pipeline to architecture, that how to bring more diverse backgrounds and voices into the field. So that's kind of a big interest.
Yes. In fact, that reminds me, I think you work with Lauren Halsey, don't you?
Oh, yes. Well, she's who I would say. I was going to say, like, if you had the thinking about who would you have do
Yes.
this, I would be
Oh,
like, yeah,
yes.
Lauren, she would be awesome.
Please. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so happy to hear you say that because, well, you just reminded me of her. I had the opportunity to interview her for the LA Forum.
Cool.
And it was literally, I met her at the David Kordansky Gallery in March of 2020, the day before they shut the city down.
Wow.
Like, I'm so glad that I had that opportunity. And like, I mean, she's so extraordinary. And one of the things she talked about was this pipeline, like that she had always been fascinated with architecture and it felt just very closed off. And
well, yeah. And I mean, at this point, I don't think it was that way when we were younger. I mean, like when I went to grad school at SCIARC, I think it was, $4,000 a semester or something. Like my grad student loans would cover that and my living expenses. And it's so expensive that that although I'm a big believer in graduate school as a way of getting into like a deeper kind of thoughts and ideas about the built environment, I think it's really problematic right now how much education costs, you know. I mean, it's just sort of recreate the um elitism, say, of like 1920s America. So yeah, so my friend Ingalil Walrus-Ritter, who you probably know, she's Woodbury now teaches at East LA City College, which she loves, and it's I've this is with some of her students, but like the city, you know, the community college programs are pretty great, you know, and then they are a good pipeline to other schools, and but just sort of how it's like the planning thing, like how can we kind of fix our education system so you can kind of get like a thoughtful, good architecture education and jobs, ideally, you know, of course,
Right.
and you know, but without being saddled with like $100 million in debt, you know, because it's not a profession that
Yeah.
is probably in our lifetime gonna suddenly turn into like cryptocurrency or something in terms of the return on investment. It's a passion, it's a vocation and passion career.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you mentioned Ingalil. I was about to mention her in that context. She was actually on the podcast a couple episodes ago.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and she mentioned you, of course.
Okay.
And she talked about Deborah Sussman and the WUHO Gallery exhibition, that wonderful show. But she's working really hard on that whole question of making it a more accessible field, and they're doing this. I don't know if it's still a pilot program. I'm sure you know about it, where you can get licensed while you're still in school.
Yeah, we sponsored some people
Yeah,
because you have to
yeah,
do some work experience during it in
yes,
order to do that. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting.
yeah, yeah,
No, it's an interesting time for, I mean, and then you know, we haven't gotten to the AI thing, whatever that's going to be. You know,
yeah,
it's a you can see the technological shifts for this generation. That's, I mean, my kids just finished college, so like they're the next 10 years, you get the feeling things are going to shift a lot. Like for me, they did. I mean, digital
yeah,
culture only started after I finished college, kind of grad school, really, because I finished grad school in '92. So it was really after that that our
yeah,
world kind of,
yeah,
yeah, I was still in the, you know, May lines and ink and
yeah,
Pantone. So,
yeah,
but then, you know, right afterwards it was changed. And then,
yeah,
but yeah, I have an office where everybody does Revit and stuff now, but not
right.
me. I suck at Revit.
So let
Um,
me ask you officially, who would you like to ask about the
Well, I would
fireplace?
definitely, yeah, Lauren Halsey, that'd be great, because I mean,
Sure.
I've talked to her, we're working on this thing for her at her studio space in Southeast LA. I know she has really intense, you know, associations with neighborhood and community and
Yes.
places and buildings and things, so I think that'd be really interesting. And I was so honored to, I met her actually at the Silverlake Conservatory Music, which is a
Oh,
project of
great.
ours, but she was Flea's
Yeah.
guest. And I saw her, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm a huge fan. I was like, I just went up, I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
Lauren Halsey, I'm a huge fan. And then we were talking for a while, and you know, she liked that building, and it kind of turned into something, but it was I was very excited to get looped in, you know, to her world. I love her work. I think that thing at the Metropolitan was just mind-bogglingly great on the rooftop. It was,
Absolutely. Yeah, mind-bogglingly great. And how great that you met her in one of your buildings. Like that's
I know, what
perfect.
a lucky break
And
for me.
yes. And I love that project. It's such a beautiful project. And speaking of purpose, like all like Flea, Lauren Halsey, like everything that they do is so, those are two people who are just fueled by such a sense of purpose and creativity.
No, I feel like that then there are people like that in LA. Like I have those two definitely. Michael Govan is kind of like that. Like he's
Oh,
trouble. I mean, I didn't realize like he's the one who found and built that Dia beacon. Like that's his project, his baby. Plus he's the one who raised all the money to make that Michael Heiser thing happen in the desert, that city
yeah.
project for like I think took like 30 years or something. So he's like one of those people like I'm gonna do this thing and just, you know, does it, which is hard to do. I call them like, they're sort of all Amadeus people, like that movie, you know, back in the day with Tom Hulce, where there's
Yeah.
and Donald Glover, he's another client of mine, but he's just blows my mind, like how many projects he has going, how many
Oh,
ideas there are, and then actually realizing all those ideas. It's just remarkable. Like the creativity and the work ethic that these kind of people have is really
yeah,
inspiring. And there's a lot of them. And I think that's the thing, like cities have more of them, you know, because it's a place where you can do all those things. And so that's kind of part of the exciting energy, I think, of you can tap into in LA.
absolutely. Thank you for being so generous with your time. I have
Thank you.
thoroughly enjoyed this.
That was super fun. So I'm excited to have gotten to hang out with you, and thanks for the prompts. You know, like that was really, I just like the idea of what do you identify with the city at this point? You know, there are 5 places to kind of tell a story. So I think that was really exciting to do.
To learn more about Barbara Bestor's work and the people and places mentioned in this conversation, please check out the extensive show notes. In a happy moment of overlap, our episode 3 guest, writer Sam Lubell, wrote about future plans for the Lloyd Wright Wayfarers Chapel, and his article is linked in the show notes. To hear more stories of the places that define Los Angeles, please subscribe. If you're enjoying the show and want to help keep it going, we would so appreciate a few moments of your time to give us a rating or review or share it with friends. 5 Places is produced by Quinn Wynn and me, Emmanuelle Bourlier, for the LA Forum for Architecture and Urban Design. We recorded on Chumash, Tongva, and Micanacan land. Thank you for listening. If you're still with us at the end of the episode, I'd love to share the answer Barbara gave when I asked what came to mind in the realm of the other senses. For her to choose either a sound, a color, a taste, or a scent that defines Los Angeles.
Well, I guess right today, this week, I have on constant repeat Kim Gordon's new song, Bye Bye. Have you heard that?
No, but I love Kim Gordon.
Yeah, and it's like kind of spoken word with, the music is kind of trap music, but it's she's kind of just listing off the things she's putting in her suitcase, but in a very foreboding way. It's really great.
It sounds great.
It literally keeps looping in my car, so it's pretty great. So I think I mean, her as a transplant she was an LA person, went to New York for so much of her career and then came back. And
yeah,
I think like her voice is a little bit that, you know, like has the perspective of LA before and after in it, and talk about like reinvention and changes and all kinds of new, I mean, and continuing like the experimental ethos. She's just mind-blowingly like restless, I guess, creatively restless and productive, and it's pretty great. So, but also it's a really good song.